So when a pair of 100+ pound towers show up at my door, I know two things. One, I'm going to need some help getting these into the room, and two, we are in for one heck of a wild ride. Welcome back to New Record Day. My name is Ron. If you consider yourself an audiophile or a music enthusiast, welcome home. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you know when the next video drops. So, in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the Legacy Signature SEs, and yes, this serves as your official ethics statement. Legacy Audio sent me the Signature SE for review. Everything I have to say about these speakers is based on what I've experienced, and no, there's been no wheeling and dealing with Legacy. They haven't slipped me a few Benjamins just to say some nice things about these speakers. All of my thoughts and opinions are my own, and that's that. The Signature SE is a 4-way sealed cabinet loudspeaker that stands just over 4 feet tall and weighs in at a hefty, back-breaking 106 pounds each. On the front, you're going to find dual 10-inch woofers, a 7-inch mid-woofer, a 4-inch AMT ribbon for mid-range, and a 1-inch AMT ribbon tweeter on top. So these are rated at about 92 dB sensitivity and a nominal 4 ohm load, and Legacy claims a frequency response from the low 20s all the way up to 30 kilohertz. Because these are a sealed design, you're not fighting as much with rear ports and boundary reinforcement, but placement still matters, and it matters a lot. Pricing for the Signature SE depends on finish, but you're generally looking at around $10,000 to $11,000 for the pair. Now, one of the first things that grabbed my attention with the Signature SE is just how stunning they look in person. The pair that I have here is in black pearl finish, and it is gorgeous. In the right light, you can see a subtle metallic sparkle in the gloss, almost like looking into the night sky. It's a kind of finish that feels premium and makes these towers look every bit as high-end as a speaker can get. Legacy also includes heavy-duty spikes for the bass. These are not an afterthought. They are substantial, well-machined, and designed to couple the cabinet solid to the floor. On carpet, they're going to dig in and keep the speaker planted, and on hard surfaces, you can use the feet that come with the speaker without the spikes to avoid damage. Again, these are just examples of details and care that Legacy puts into the whole package. Around back, you've got 2 trim switches on the terminal plate, both labeled, as you would know it, trim. With both in the up position, you get the out-of-box response, no attenuation in treble or bass. Flip the treble trim switch down, and it reduces the top end by about 2 decibels, starting around 10 kilohertz. Flip the bass trim switch down, and you'll cut roughly 2 decibels around 60 hertz. And keep in mind, that bass trim also raises the impedance just a little bit in that region, which can actually make the Signature SE easier for modest amps and receivers to drive. Now, before we move on, I should mention that along with the Signature SEs, Legacy also sent me their IV2 Ultra amplifier. Since I've already covered its performance in previous videos, today I'll stay focused on the speakers, but here's a quick sketch so you know what we're dealing with. The IV2 Ultra is a dual mono Ice Edge Class D stereo amp rated around 1,000 watts per channel into 4 ohms. It just makes me giggle every time. 1,000 watts into 4 ohms and about 610 watts into 8 ohms, both channels driven. The amp is fully balanced and offers both XLR and RCA inputs, gold-plated binding posts, and a damping factor in the 700s. Price of admission will set you back about $4,800, and I'll leave all of the links and all of the details about the amplifier down below. For those that are dying for just a real quick rundown on the amplifier, here's the deal. I found the IV2 to be powerful and clean, slightly more relaxed in the mid-range relative to other amps that I have in-house, but still plenty of clarity, strong bass control, and excellent dynamics, no doubt about that. The top end of the Signature SE is airy, leaning toward an analytical character that is quick to resolve, compared to a soft dome, which often has a smoother or more polite presentation. The AMT feels faster and more effortless. It's almost like the difference between watercolor and fine ink lines. Domes blend things together gently, while AMTs sketch out those upper frequencies with crisp precision. There's more air and a greater sense of detail, as if the nuances in the mix are easier to notice instead of being smoothed out. These attributes, of course, come with consequences depending on how a speaker is voiced. In the case of the Signatures, there is a noticeable rise in the response, something I'll show later in the measurements. For some listeners, myself included, that extra air and extension can be more than what you want, and that's where the negative 2 dB switch comes in handy. With it engaged, the Signatures soften slightly, making longer sessions more enjoyable and less fatiguing, while still retaining plenty of detail and, across most genres, delivering a forward presentation. And now would be a good time to mention positioning. Initially, I had these pointed directly at me, and that was a no-go for me. They were simply just too bright, even with the negative 2 dB toggle engaged. After some experimenting, I found I enjoyed them much more when they were towed out slightly, aimed just past my shoulders. Getting out of the direct line of those tweeters made the presentation much more balanced and much more natural sounding to me. Voices and instruments in the midband follow the top end's lead when it comes to voicing. The Signatures deliver excellent clarity and laser line detail, but it often comes at the expense of body or bloom. From what I am hearing, the AMT midrange driver wants to go fast, and it doesn't spend much time lingering on tone or warmth. For listeners who value precision, this might feel like perfection, but for others chasing a little bit more soul in the midband, the presentation may come across as cold or dry. Male and female vocals offer loads of texture, but the texture lives more in the upper harmonics than in the chesty, weighty fundamentals. Put it another way, if there's more body in these speakers to be found, it's hard to catch because of that rise in the response tends to lead the charge. That said, acoustic guitars have plenty of snap and complex mixes, never feel congested. There's no shortage of analytical information here. And for many audiophiles, this is exactly the dragon they want to ride. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Now, as we travel below the belt, the first thing that stood out about the bass performance of the Signatures is the complete lack of resonance or box coloration. Legacy has clearly done their homework here, and at no point did I hear any panel vibrating or any unwanted bloom in the bass. Now, with the speakers pulled 9 feet into the room, they're not going to reach quite as low as they would just a few feet off of the wall. But looking at my in-room response, I still had usable energy all the way down to about 35 hertz. Yes, there is, of course, a drop-off around 50 hertz in the sound shed, but let's be honest, asking any loudspeaker to perform miracles this far away from boundary reinforcement is a tall freaking order. If you think that I'm crazy for this setup, 9 feet into the room, are you serious, Ron? Check out my video where I do a deep dive about positioning, my approach, and why I do what I do. Bottom line, I'm a lunatic, but at least there's a method to my madness. Either way, the bass I was hearing from these speakers is tight. It's controlled, and man, it hits with authority. They dig deep, but it's not just about extension. The bass is taut, defined, and never bloated. Kick drums landed with real weight, and upright bass carried pitch definition that made every note easy to follow. As for imaging and soundstage, here's the deal. You have a forward presentation. These are detailed, these are lively, you get a lot of information on the top part of the speaker, and therefore, while these can sound wide, they don't necessarily sound deep. I didn't get a lot of depth with these speakers. I feel like this is more of a front row type of a presentation because I couldn't pull myself away from a lot of those details. Not necessarily a dig or a bad thing. I'm just letting you know if you're the type of listener that you want a deep sound stage, you want things to kind of just lay down and relax, that's not what these do. This is more exciting, it's more engaging, there's fireworks, there's a lot going on in terms of imaging. They play wide, the scale is nuts. I mean, these wake up the sound shed in a marvelous way, and they certainly play wide, but it is a forward type of a presentation, no doubt about that. As always here on New Record Day, I've included some sound clips so you can get a sense of how the Legacy Audio Signature SE performs in a real-world setup. These were recorded with a pair of Earthworks QTC40s running into my Zoom F8n. Example A will be the reference track, and example B will be the recording of the speakers.
Engineer, where are you headed? Engineer, where are you headed?
No hubiera pensado que yo me iba a enamorar, jamás no quería saber nada más, nunca más. No hubiera pensado que yo me iba a enamorar, jamás no quería saber nada más, nunca más.
Alright, let's walk through some measurements which were all taken using my Clio Pocket using a gated window. Starting with the on-axis measurement, the Signature SE shows a smooth response through the mid-range, but then there is a clear rise in treble past 10 kilohertz. That rise is exactly what gave me that sense of extra air and detail, and also why I found the treble switch to be useful and preferred listening to these pointing at my shoulders or even past my shoulders. Horizontal dispersion. Taking a look at the horizontal plots, the speaker maintains good control. The off-axis traces track the on-axis response nicely before gradually tapering off. This means even if you're not locked dead center, the balance remains intact and the imaging holds together. Okay, something worth mentioning. For all of these measurements, I started with the microphone positioned right in between the AMT tweeter and the AMT midrange, which is up pretty dang high. When taking a look at the vertical response, I move the microphone up 4 inches at a time, and this is a response that I got. Now, after taking these shots, I decided to take a look at how things measure moving with the mic going down, and this is the response that I ended up with. Either way, up or down, as you move higher or lower, dips and cancellations begin to show up in the crossover region. Which reminds me, this is a good time to mention listening height. Now, my chair sits fairly low, and I took one measurement at about 36 inches off the ground, which is close to my ear height when I'm sitting down. Now, as you can see from this shot, compared again, much higher where the reference point was that we were just looking at before, your seating position and height will matter. That is to say, with the mid-range and tweeter drivers mounted up that high, ear height will absolutely influence what you hear. Finally, the waterfall plot shows just how quickly the Signature SE lets go of energy, and Legacy deserves some recognition for this. It is very clean and one of the most impressive waterfalls that I've seen in quite some time. The decay is fast and clean across the spectrum that was measured, with no lingering resonances hanging around, no stored energy, none of that. That kind of behavior is a big part of why transient sounds so crisp and why the top end feels so precise. And folks, there you have it. The Legacy Audio Signature SE is a serious loudspeaker for serious listeners, but I'll be clear, they're voiced for a very specific audience. They deliver deep, authoritative bass, clean and precise mid-range, and an overall balance that points towards detail and resolution. Yes, positioning and trim switches can nudge things in a different direction, but at the end of the day, this is a detail-centric speaker. That's their identity, and that's what they're going to bring to the table. They are drop-dead gorgeous, they're well built, and I couldn't find a single thing that I would call a flaw in terms of execution. It really just does come down to taste. Only you can decide whether or not the Signature SE is the right fit for you and your system and your listening style. And with that, I'll see you Legacy audio-loving audiophiles in the next video.